So today we've got a really cool story for you. It's about a massive, super complex problem inside a modern factory and how they found this incredibly elegant solution by looking to, of all places, nature itself.
Have you ever really stopped to think about this? How does a factory juggle making millions of unique products and somehow get them all delivered on time? I mean, it's a question most of us probably don't think about, but the answer is just, well, it's mind-bogglingly complex. Behind every single smart device you own, there's this incredible logistical ballet happening. But what happens when that dance gets so complicated that no human can choreograph it anymore? Okay, so our story takes place right here. This is a real-world factory that makes smart meters, and every single order, every single meter, has to go on this journey through the factory floor. It starts with raw plastic molding, moves on to some really intricate circuit board assembly, and then finally gets tested and shipped out. The thing is, if you get the timing wrong at any one of these spots, the entire system just starts to fall apart.
So here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with the factory's massive challenge. Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the timing problem. After that, we'll introduce the hero, this nature-inspired algorithm. We'll see how it works, check out the amazing results, and finally talk about what this means for the future.
All right, Section 1, the factory's grand challenge. And let me tell you, this is not your classic old-school assembly line just stamping out the same thing a million times. Now, this place is what's called a make-to-order environment. That means they're building a massive variety of different custom products, and often in huge numbers. Plus, every single order has its own tight deadline. And here's the kicker. Some customers are more important than others, so trying to juggle all of that, yeah, that is the grand challenge. Okay, so how do you even begin to tackle a problem like this? Well, first you have to be able to measure it, right? You need a way to put an actual number on, well, on being late. And they do it with this metric called total weighted tardiness, or TWT for short. Just think of it like a penalty score in a video game. The higher your score, the worse you're doing. Every day an order is late, you get points. But if a really important, high-priority order is late, you get hit with a ton of points. So the name of the game for the factory scheduler is simple. Get that TWT score as close to zero as humanly, or in this case, algorithmically, possible. And remember, they have to keep that score low while every single product runs through this 4-stage production gauntlet. It kicks off with plastic injection. Then it's on to the high-tech stuff, surface mount technology, or SMT, which is basically putting on all the tiny microchips. Then comes pin-through-hole, or PTH, for soldering bigger parts, and it all wraps up with final assembly and testing. A delay anywhere in that chain, and you get this massive bottleneck for everything behind it. Okay, now take a look at this. This Gantt chart, it gives you a sense of just how insane this problem is. And just to be clear, this is not the solution. This is the chaos. Every one of those little colored bars is a different job, on a different machine, with all sorts of setup times and buffers in between. Trying to optimize this by hand? Forget it. It would be like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube with a million sides. It's just not possible. You know, in computer science, there's a name for this kind of problem. It's called NP-hard. And that's really just a fancy way of saying it's so ridiculously complex that you can't solve it with brute force. You can't just throw a bigger computer at it. Seriously, if you tried to check every single possible schedule to find the absolute best one, it would literally take longer than the age of the universe. So you have to find a much, much smarter way to do it. And that smarter approach? Well, it came from a place that's been solving complex problems for billions of years. Nature and evolution itself. So let's think about this. On the one hand, you've got the brute force method, checking every single combination. We already know that's impossible. But on the other hand, you have this evolutionary approach. What if instead of checking everything, you just started with a bunch of okay-ish schedules, and then you let them breed? You take the best parts from 2 good schedules, mash them together, and maybe you create an even better offspring schedule. It's a clever shortcut. And listen, this isn't just me making up a cool analogy. This is a real, well-established field in computer science called genetic algorithms. They are literally inspired by the mechanics of natural selection, survival of the fittest, to solve some of the most complex problems out there. Okay, so that sounds great in theory, right? But how does it actually work in practice? How do you get a computer to evolve the perfect schedule for a factory? Well, it all comes down to this evolutionary loop. First, the algorithm just creates a whole population of random schedules, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Then it checks their fitness. In our case, that just means which one has the lowest TWT penalty score. The best ones, the fittest ones, get selected to be parents. Then comes the cool part, crossover and mutation. It combines parts of the best parent schedules and then throws in a few random changes, that's the mutation, to create a brand new generation of schedules. You just repeat this process over and over and over, and pretty soon, a nearly perfect schedule starts to evolve all on its own.
And this right here, this is the secret sauce, the real genius. The algorithm doesn't see the schedule like we do. Instead, it represents the entire complex schedule as a string of data. Basically, it's DNA. This brilliant encoding method turns that messy, chaotic Gantt chart we saw a minute ago into these clean, simple strings of numbers that the computer can easily work with. It can read them, combine them, and mutate them. It's fantastic.
So that's the theory. It's elegant, it's inspired by nature, but does it actually work? I mean, in a real, messy, chaotic factory? Well, let's find out. Time to look at the results. Okay, get ready for this. Compared to what the company was doing before, the genetic algorithm slashed that all-important penalty score, the total weighted tardiness, by a whopping 40.3%.
And that's not just some abstract number. That percentage translates directly into cold, hard cash. In just one sample period, that 40% reduction meant they recovered over $182,000 in value, just by getting the right orders shipped on time.
And this table here tells the whole story. Look at this. The old manual schedule, over 11,000 days of that penalty score. Not great. They tried a pretty standard automated rule, a heuristic, and that helped, getting it down to around 8,800. But the genetic algorithm, it just crushed both of them, bringing the score all the way down to 6,609. I mean, the data just speaks for itself. It's undeniable. I love this graph. It's basically a picture of the algorithm learning. That vertical line is the penalty score, right? So lower is better. And you can see right at the beginning, in the first few generations, it makes these huge jumps, finding way better solutions almost instantly. Then it starts to flatten out as it just refines and tweaks and perfects the schedule, evolving its way to the best possible answer. So, okay, this is obviously a massive win for this one factory. But what does it mean for the bigger picture? For the future of how we make things? Well, this stuff really matters. First off, it takes a job that took human planners hours and condenses it down to minutes. And when factories are more efficient, our supply chains become stronger, more resilient, that ultimately means lower costs and better availability of, well, everything we buy. This isn't just about factory scheduling anymore. This is a real glimpse into a future driven by AI optimization. And that really leaves us with one last big question to think about. If an AI inspired by nature can solve the incredible complexity of a modern factory, what other massive tangled systems could it optimize for us? Think about it. City traffic grids, airline schedules, coordinating logistics for disaster relief. What other grand challenges are out there, just waiting for us to let a solution evolve?